My son pressed a plastic visitor badge into my palm. The house I paid for had rules now. Before we continue, please subscribe and like the video and tell us in the comments below, where are you listening from and what time is it there? Your support keeps these stories alive. Thank you. He clipped the badge on my shirt himself, eyes steady but not meeting mine, as if aiming it at the pocket spared him from aiming anything at my face. Just for the week, Baba, he said. Housewarming crowd, a lot of movement. Safety. I looked down the hall I had framed with my own hands. The corridor used to smell like fresh varnish and spice. Now, it carried lemon cleaner and expensive soap I couldn't name. A hotel pretending to be a home. The guest room door was open, my door apparently, and the bed was pushed against the far window where morning light would flatten a face. A folded towel waited like a flag of surrender. My name can't pass security anymore. I tried to keep it light. Don't be dramatic, Baba, Rahil said softly. You know how Mina is. She has systems. Mina did have systems. Color-coded bins. Matching baskets for shoes. A calendar with stickers that meant different guest categories, the way construction sites use spray paint on asphalt. She had reorganized the kitchen until my hands forgot where the soul lived. She said, "we," when my wife's name came up, as if history was a garment she could tailor to fit. I am Armin Qureshi, 60 years old. Born in a house with window slats that rattled in the monsoon, raised by a mother who kept her ring in flour so it wouldn't disappear. I built my first staircase at 22, and I've never fallen down one since. After Sahar, my wife, died, I built this house. I measured the sit-out for evening breeze as she would have asked. I chose the brick that kept Noon's temper out. I placed a framed sketch above the entry, because if a home isn't a body, it is at least a face. I put the deed in Rahil's name the year of my heart scare. A proud, stupid thing. Make him a man, my mother had said once. Make him owner of something that can look back at him. Pride and fear twist the same shape inside the chest. During late winter, when the hawkers sold peanuts and newspaper cones, Rahil and Mina announced a housewarming 6 months after move-in, now that everything was set. They hired a stylist to arrange books by color. They rented heaters for the lawn. In the afternoons, I sanded a rough patch on the banister no one else could feel. Twice I found a card on my pillow that said, in Mina's careful handwriting, guest policy. No shoes in the hall. No cooking after evening. Please book bathroom hours. A laughable list. Except that laughter scricked. The inciting breach wasn't the badge. That only sealed it. The breach arrived the evening I came back with a bag of oranges and found my key loose and useless in the new lock. Rahil opened from inside wearing socks and a new expression, the look of a man apologizing in public for a private decision he liked. We changed the cylinder, he said. Mina's cousin's kid lost a key at the last dinner. Liability. The word hurt, not because of the law in it, but the logic. Something I could not be trusted to prevent. A stranger's mistake had sent me to the doorbell of my own life. I could have raised my voice. I could have said the old sentence fathers say when people step on them. This is my house. It would have been untrue on paper and too true in the bones. Pride is a fat snake pretending to be a belt. Cinch it one notch tighter and suddenly you can't breathe. Instead, I held up the oranges. For the guests, I said. At dinner, laughter rolled from the living room like a new rug unrolled. Mina arranged plates with a ruler. Rahil kept rising to check his phone. When I stood to tidy, Mina blocked me with a smile that belonged in a training video. Armin, uncle, she said, and her choice of name knocked something off the shelf inside me. Please relax. We've got it. After everyone left and the house settled into the deep quiet of late night, I walked barefoot to the kitchen. There are two kinds of quiet. One that returns a house to breathing, and the other that seals it under glass. This was the second. I poured water, drank, and put the glass down where glasses used to go. My hand found air. Mina had moved the shelf. I've always believed in simple leverage. A small shim under a heavy beam can correct a roofline that wants to sag. People are the same. You don't lift the person, you move what they're standing on. The first turning point arrived in a small, foolish package. Raheel had started a habit of filming our dinners, then trimming away the awkward silences, adding captions, posting, family first, always. He tagged me in a clip where my mouth opened and closed like a fish while he talked about community and gratitude. A performance is a frame. I saw the weakness right there in the black border of his phone. He needed me to look like a good father so he could look like a good son. A week before the housewarming, I found a shoebox in the storage under the stairs, the kind I built to hide mess discreetly. Inside lay Sahar's old recipe cards, the ones stained with turmeric and tears. On top, a folded note in her tilted hand. When you are old, make a place for your father, a chair that remembers him. She had written it for Raheel the winter he turned 16. I had never delivered it. Work had swallowed the moment, and then grief had swallowed the year. I sat on the cool stair and read the line until the words warmed. Then I put the note in my wallet and stood. A house has two alignments, one for weight, one for meaning. I had neglected the second, but meaning can be jacked up from underneath if you're patient. I walked the perimeter of the lawn, measuring by foot, counting paces by habit, listening for the house's old pulse beneath the new polish. A plan is a thing you can build out of the air if you trust the studs are there. I didn't sleep much the night before the housewarming. The sky wore that pre-dawn blue that is honest about nothing. I made tea the way Sahar did when a storm was on its way, strong enough to hold a spoon upright. Sitting at the table, I sketched. I designed a staircase once for a school that didn't want to look expensive. We used light, plants, and a wide railing that caught afternoon like applause. The trick was making the building tell the story the client sold. Now, my client was my son. He had been selling generosity. I would make the building talk. First, I wired the doorbell camera to my tablet. No hacks. It was my installation originally. I had put the conduit before the walls closed. I only needed to remember the passcode. My eldest brother's birth year doubled. Old men leave breadcrumbs even when they don't mean to. Then I called 3 neighbors, men who still wore their sleeves rolled for work even when retired. I invited them for a quiet dedication for Sahar's Corner, the small sit-out where I put her sketch. I asked if they could each invite one person who had known us. Back when. Someone with a mouth that said what it wanted. They understood. Men like us communicate in the space between sentences. Next, I messaged the Mason's widow, Noor, who still lived 2 streets away. Her husband had died 2 years after we finished the house. He did not live to see the gleam of his joints under this family's party lights. Come for tea, I wrote. Bring your 2 boys. I also messaged a food blogger I had met fixing a broken shelf in her studio. She owed me a favor for saving her pictures from falling mid-shoot. If you're free, I wrote, document a father being honored at his son's housewarming. The internet loves that kind of thing. Emotional bait. Social engineering. Symbolic acts. Craft is craft, whether you're mixing mortar or attention. At breakfast, Mina ran the day like a marshal. Raheel, greet at the gate. I'll manage the flow inside. Armin Uncle, that name again, a bad screw. Can you please sit in the guest room for a bit? The early crowd gets confused by too many hosts. I nodded. Even a small insult can be useful if you don't take it personally. I used my quiet to print a small plaque on cardstock and slide it into a frame I found in a box. Sahar's Corner. A chair that remembers him. I placed the chair, my chair, under her sketch. Guests arrived at dusk, coats smelling like street dust and perfume. Raheel glowed. He had chosen a dark sherwani that made him look older and more serious. He shook hands as if ideas could be transferred palm to palm. He was good at this. You have to respect an opponent's blade, even when it's your blood on it. He introduced me to people as Baba, but the words skated. When the moment came, he led a group into the living room for a short speech. We're grateful, he said, for the roots that made us. My father built with his hands, so I could build with my mind. Applause. A good line. I had fed him lines like this when he was a boy, stuttering at school plays. He had learned them too well. I waited for the lull that follows commendation. I stood up a little too slowly for drama, holding the framed plaque. Before the food, I said, a small dedication. I kept my voice low. People lean in for low. I walked to the sit-out and placed the frame on a table beside the chair. This corner is for Sahar, I said, my wife. Rahil's mother. She likes sunsets, raisins and kheer, and people finishing their sentences. She once wrote Rahil a note. When you are old, make a place for your father, a chair that remembers him. I turned to my son. I didn't give it to you, Beta. I thought there would be a better time. There never is. I saw the first shiver in Rahil's mask, a barely open mouth, an unplanned blink. Mina placed a hand on his forearm, the kind of touch that says stay with me when it should say go to him. Nor arrived with her boys. I welcomed them like VIPs. This family helped pour the bones of this place, I said aloud, not looking at Rahil, but letting the room's center shift. Today, they'll sit where the bones rest. I gave them the front seats by Sahar's chair. The blogger filmed with a quiet phone, capturing faces more than frame quotes. After the first wave, I took my tablet and played footage from the doorbell camera onto the TV, muted clips of the house from the day with a concrete skeleton, Nora's husband laughing, me carrying rebar on my shoulder, Sahar standing in the dust with her hair wrapped, pinching salt into something too dark to be soup. People gathered as if the house itself had a baby album. Mina leaned toward me, smile pinned to her teeth. This wasn't on the program. It's our housewarming, I said. Our includes the dead. The room softened. The old neighbors started naming things by their first name as if people. The stair. The kitchen window. The mango tree that didn't live. The building had been pulled back inside itself, memory stitching drywall to steel. People swiped at their eyes when they thought no one watched. Rahil smiled too wide. He looked like he was host at a funeral where the wrong person had died. Midway, a man I didn't know whispered near the kitchen. He put the deed in the boy's name, after the heart thing. I had not planned to hear my own fault thrown like a coin. It landed and rolled in a circle, noisy. That was the mid-story turn. The hidden truth wasn't about them. It was about me. I had set this table years ago, out of love and a need to be remembered for what I could sign. I stepped into the open as the footage looped. I gave Rahil this house, I said, loud enough for the room but not theatrical. I wanted my son to feel like a man. I made him owner before I taught him home. That part is on me. The room held its breath. Noor's youngest turned to look at my son as if measuring him with a stick. Then I tilted the beam. But Rahil has never liked losing face, I added, letting my voice warm. He has my stubbornness and his mother's need for beauty. He will do the right thing if the whole street is watching. I had a small stack of printed cards near the front door. On each was a QR code that led to a web page the blogger helped me make. The top line read, Baba's Chair, a monthly supper open to neighbors, crew, and strays, hosted by Rahil. Below, first Sunday each month at dusk. Bring one photograph and one story. Any attempt to cancel would be a public act. Any acceptance would be a recurring confession. Either way, the ground had shifted. Mina realized first. Her eyes went wide, then slim. We'll discuss this privately, she whispered. Of course, I said. But guests are here now, and guests need a host. Rahil tried to take control. Baba, this is sweet. Maybe we frame the note, do it one time. Noor stood up. Our master used to say, she said. She meant me. That a house breathes when it remembers who paid for its shadow. She looked at Rahil as if awarding a medal and a sentence together. Your mother would like the suppers. The escalation was not loud. It did not need to be. People began asking when to RSVP, if children could come, if the kitchen could handle more pots. The internet loves calendars. It hates people who erase them. On the terrace, between plates and small talk, a cousin of Mina let slip in that way of cousins who pretend to whisper that Rahil had put feelers out to sell within the year and upgrade to where the gate is staffed by men in white golf caps. The house around us breathed like an insulted animal. I did not react. I didn't have to. The blogger caught the cousin's words on a mic she didn't announce, packaging them if needed for the Truth campaign. At the end, I walked to Rahil and kept my voice private. There is a panel in the utility room, I said, for the lawn lights. You don't know it because you were busy when we wired. If you said it to Eve, the garden will teach you when night really is. Light is a good teacher. Let it make you slow down. He swallowed. He understood I was telling him two things at once. The first supper arrived a month later, with the early spring wind that makes curtains think they can fly. People came carrying food, stories, and the kind of laughter that turns into tears without asking permission. Mina managed the trays with tight grace. Rahil wore a sweater too clean for the stove and stood where hosts stand, near the threshold, half inside, half out. "Welcome," he said, voice steady. "This house knows you." He had studied. He'd watched me all those years without me noticing. He borrowed my slow starts. But a man can learn your steps and still miss your rhythm. He pulled me aside before Nora arrived. "Baba," he said, "I can't do this every month. Mina's schedule. Work H. It's a lot. You like being seen doing it, though," I said gently, "and the street is watching." He flinched. Then he nodded. Late. The confrontation I had asked for came like rain after too much humidity. At the second supper, an old friend of Sahar, an upright woman with a voice like a brass bull, brought a framed photograph from a winter picnic, me with Sahar and little Rahil, her hand on his head as if measuring how much of me had made it into him. She held up the photo for the room. "A house is not a deed," she said. "It's a promise, re-spoken in front of witnesses." She turned to Rahil. "We are your witnesses." Rahil had planned a reply. Then Noor's oldest, a young man with the humility of someone who has carried cement, spoke. "Bye," he said to Rahil, "not sir. My father died working on homes where he couldn't sit. You have a chair with your father's name. Sit within, or give the chair to someone who will." A small silence fell. The loudest silences sound like dignity being measured. Rahil looked at me with something raw around the eyes. "You're punishing me," he said, voice just for me. "I'm teaching you," I said, "the way beams teach walls to bear." He took a breath as if coastline had appeared. Then he asked Noor's oldest to sit beside him that night. He told a story about Sahar's last spring, how she made us stop work to plant jasmine by the back wall, how he rolled his eyes at 13 and then stood too long near the scent when he thought no one saw. The room softened him. Public shame can be a surgeon if you hold its hand gently. Twist. 3 arrived, not as a trap, but as a door opening from behind. When I laid the last of Sahar's recipe cards on a table for people to take, a folded square fell from the box I had moved 100 times. Not the note to Rahil, I had given that. Another one. Her handwriting again. "If you kept the deed for him, keep the key for yourself. A home must know who built it, even if the paper doesn't." I had kept the key, of course, the original skeleton key with teeth like a city skyline. Not for locks, which had changed, but for the sound it made against my coin. I had been planning something sharp, to stand, hold the key high, and declare life. A state none could argue with, to dare them to drag me out past the neighbors. It would have worked. But the paper in my hand carried a different instruction. Mercy isn't soft, it's a rasp. It smooths what rage leaves jagged. On the third supper, as dusk turned the house gold around the edges, I asked for attention. Raheel stood with his hands in front of him like a boy at assembly. I built this place with my hands, I said, and with the mouths of men who sang as they lifted. I gave it to my son with my fear of dying early. He took it with his hunger to be important. Both are true. I held the skeleton key where the light could make it something sanctified. I could keep this and dare anyone to take it from me. I could make this my last mountain and die standing. But Sahar has a better plan. I read her line aloud. If you kept the deed for him, keep the key for yourself. I walked to Raheel. My son's face had come undone in small places. He looked like a man who had built a brand new raft, but suddenly remembered how to swim. I pressed the key into his palm and closed his fingers around it. This is yours, I said. The chair is yours to keep or to lose. The suppers are yours to continue or to end. Every choice will make a sound. He cried a little. The kind men pretend is the wind. Mina watched with her arms folded, then unfolded, something softening as if a seam had been overstitched and finally lay flat. I gave them one more thing to carry. If you sell, I said, put this chair in the moving truck first. If you stay, keep this corner facing the same light. I won't be your guest. I won't be your host. I will be the man who taught your doors which way they open. In the weeks that followed, I moved to a small apartment on the other side of the park. A ceiling fan that sings little on humid nights. A balcony that receives morning light like a letter. I took Sahar's spice tin and the pencil I sharpen every Sunday, even if it doesn't need it. When I passed the old house on my walks, I sometimes saw Raheel in the garden at dusk, the lawn lights warm. He set them to Eve like I told him. He stood under Sahar's sketch, as neighbors came with food and stories and the kind of laughter that keeps grief alive in a good way. The blogger posted a video, Raheel placing a new plaque under the chair. Baba's chair, permanent. The comments were kind. Kindness is a kind of punishment too when you're not ready. I didn't go to every supper. Sometimes mercy is staying away so the new floor can settle. I kept the badge, the plastic one that said visitor, and hung it on a nail by my door. It's not a wound anymore. It's a small, stupid souvenir, proof that I learned a language I should have taught. A guest learns to knock. A father learns what not to enter. Hook from opening. My son pressed the plastic visitor badge into my palm. The house I paid for had rules now. I fall asleep most nights, with the window open, the street humming its soft machine song, and the feeling in my chest that homes are less like buildings and more like vows. You don't own them. You keep saying them, even when your voice grows thin.